Folks, welcome back to Carl's Off the Grid. This week, I know it's going to sound kind of funny me saying this, I'm going to be wiring the off-the-grid cabin. Just sounds strange, wiring an off-the-grid cabin. So basically why I'm wiring it is, even though I am off the grid, I do have a solar setup that I'm going to be using to power the cabin. What my plans are is I'd like to have a few outlets for charging the cell phone, for charging my video equipment for YouTube, and maybe have a radio or a small TV so that I can keep in touch in case of bad weather or anything hectic is going on in the world. I'll be able to have an outside line of communication and know what's going on. All my lighting in here is going to be low voltage lighting. The lights that I'm choosing use only 3 watts of power, and so I'm going to be able to put lights absolutely everywhere. My plans for wiring the cabin is going to be very basic. It's probably not going to make code where you live. It may or may not, I don't know. And so I know I'm going to get swamped with a bunch of comments in this video. You should have done this, you should have done that, you should have done this. Well, frankly, there's a million different ways that everybody can do it. I'm going to show you the way that I'm going to do it. And this isn't a how-to video. It's simply, this is how I did the lighting in my cabin. So, take it for what it is. And I appreciate comments, but negative comments we don't need. It's obvious there's a million different ways that you can do it. I'm making basically a glorified extension cord is what I'm doing. So I will have a breaker box, a 100 amp breaker box that I throw in here, but I'm just using that as a place where I can junction all this stuff together. I'm going to basically just make loops that go throughout the cabin. It's a real tiny cabin, and so there isn't much that I have to do here. I'm going to start out by first putting electrical boxes in areas where I like to have them, and then I'll run the wiring to it. This week, if I can get the boxes set, all the wiring and the holes drilled through the studs and everything, and have it all ran over to the main breaker box, breaker panel, 100 amp panel, whatever you want to call it, I'll be happy. And then in future videos, I can actually connect the outlets and all that stuff, but that's way down the road. That usually doesn't happen until after all the siding, or after all the interior work is done. After I have my tongue and groove wood put in here, and after I have my ceiling and everything put in, then at the very end, then I'll go ahead and then I'll actually put the fixtures in. But for right now, I'm just going to do prep, do what's called rough-in work. We'll get the wiring strung through the walls, get it into the right positions, get our boxes mounted, and be prepared for later on down in the construction process. So I have all of this and probably a little bit more coming up on the video. Hope you enjoy it, and pitter patter, like I always say, let's get at her. For those of you who may have not done wiring before, it's pretty simple when you hang these boxes. The boxes that I picked up, they have a ridge right here. I don't know if the camera can pick that up or not. But that little ridge, I want to put flush to the stud where I'm going to mount this box. And that's like a stop. It'll let this plastic stick out just far enough that when I put on my tongue and groove siding, this will sit flush with the surface of it. So you just witnessed me put in my first box. If you notice, the way that I figure out the height for my boxes is with a basic hammer. I usually put it on the ground. The box will sit flush on top of this hammer, and that's what I'm going to do so that all my electrical outlets are at the same height so that everything looks uniform. I'm going to go ahead and start getting my light switches ready, and those fit in a little bit bigger box. It has the same concept where it has the stops on the side, where you just slide this up against those stops on the wall, and enough will just sit out so that it's going to be flush with the finished wall surface. And these boxes generally, I like to mount the bottom of the box 4 feet off the ground. First 2 boxes are in. All right, on this side wall, this is going to be the wall where most likely we, like I said earlier, we do want to stay in contact with the outside world. With today's world, you never know. In case there's an emergency, we need to be aware of what's going on. And also, when the grandkids come up, if they want to watch some videos or things like that, we decided we were going to have a TV. I don't know how much it'll ever be used, but we're going to make provisions for it. And you know what? I'd rather have it, the provisions be there and not use a TV than to all of a sudden decide, hey, we wanted to have a TV to let the kids watch videos, and then there's no provisions there. So we're going to think ahead a little bit. For the height of this box is going to have a port for an antenna to be connected to it, as well as an electrical outlet, because I don't want to have a wall mount TV and then have cords hanging down underneath. It just doesn't look right. It looks horrible. So we're going to go ahead and install this box on this wall. All right, and the height that I'm going to choose here is just merely a height of, I probably don't want to have a huge TV. This is about being off the grid. It's not about keeping up with the Joneses. So, wrong box. Good catch. I'll grab the right box, and I'll keep it just high enough for maybe a small wall mount TV to fit on. And this way it'll still be hidden behind the TV. You won't have an ugly box or ugly cords to look at. Okay, and roughly in this area is where we're probably going to have like our food prep. So with the kitchen countertop, with the backsplash added on, you're roughly going to be at about 40 inches. So obviously these outlets, you want to keep a little bit higher than that 40 inches, so that if you want to plug in anything that needs to be operated on your countertop, you'll have the adequate height for it. So we'll go ahead and we'll put this outlet in a little bit higher than that 40 inches. There's my 40 inches, and I'm going to come up a little bit. Here again, the electricians probably could tell you exactly how high it should be. I'm not worried about code. This is an off-the-grid cabin. This is just going to be for my convenience. So I just want to keep it in mind that the countertop is going to be, X amount of inches, and then with the backsplash, it'll be 40. So we'll keep it a little bit higher. Thinking about this, I'll probably be doing 2 here, just in case if on this countertop we wanted to have like a charging station for our cell phones or for the computer. So this may be a little bit strange, but I'm going to do 2 right in this same general area. Let's see what height I put the other one at. There we go. Let's double check our work. Not that I really need to be anal about this, but I do want it to look somewhat uniform, and I don't want it to look like it's been hodgepodged. So, all right, we got our 2 outlets in there. Further on down the house, I know I'm putting my wood burner stove down there, so I don't want any power anywhere close to the wood burning stove. Let's see if there's any other place that I think I need some. All right, perfect example. I'm going to show you how we built this smart wall. If you notice, when I first started mounting this box, I had a little bit of foam that was in the way. The way that I designed this wall, I've been in the trades now since 1985, so it's 30 some odd years. Whenever you have your stud wall in direct contact with the exterior of the home, you're going to have some heat and coolness that transfer in between the exterior and interior wall. When I designed this cabin with the company that actually made the outside, the frame of the cabin, I went ahead and I had them put some 2x4s on the outside face of these interior 2x4s. And the reason I did that is because that's where I filled that void up with all my foam. So in the wintertime, the cold can't just directly transfer in from these 2x4s, getting the room cold. It stops because it has insulated foam behind it. So it's a great way to build a wall, especially if you're in an extreme area where the temperatures get well below 0. I'm talking U.S. terms, talking Fahrenheit. It helps so that you don't have a lot of heat loss and things like that. So, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up with you. It's a little helpful hint for when you design your own cabin. If you do decide to go with a tiny cabin like this, every little bit helps, right? So, all right. I think that's pretty much going to complete the few boxes that I have in here. There's not many. It's a tiny cabin, so we don't have to worry about having too many outlets. And keep in mind, we're trying to stay somewhat off the grid. So I'm happy with what we all have. All right, folks, I just came up to my sleeping quarters to check what time it is, and I didn't realize how much of the day's already slipped by. And I'm looking at the minutes on the video. That's getting pretty long too. So I think I'm going to make this a 2-part series. The first part, we kind of discussed a little bit about what I'm doing with my electrical boxes. I showed you how I measure for my outlets. That's the one that I measured at my hammer length.
And then we talked about having a countertop. Obviously, in food prep areas, you want your outlets a little bit higher. And then we also talked a little bit about the satellite dish and hanging up an outlet a little bit higher so that we don't have any cords hanging underneath the TV. So I think we got a lot done today. And next part, we're going to go ahead, we'll do all the wiring, and I'll go ahead and hang 100 amp service that I picked up at the hardware store. I know 100 amp is just, it's huge for something this small, but that's the smallest I could get in town here. I'm right on the Wisconsin border, so all my shopping is done in the UP. And when I went up there, it was kind of funny. I could either get, you know, 100 amp service or anything that was bigger. And this definitely 100 amp is already too big, but that's the smallest I can get, so that's what we're using. So we'll hang that service, we'll pull the wires, and maybe we'll do a little bit of fishing. I hear that the crappies are starting to turn on, so we'll see what happens. If I got enough time next week, you know, we'll go ahead and we'll do a little bit of crappie fishing as well. But as usual, thank you to my subscribers. Welcome to all my new subscribers. It's great to have you with us. And if you don't mind, if you could give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, I'd encourage you to hit the subscribe button and also share with a friend. And we'll catch you next week on Carl's Off the Grid.